Hello, and welcome to this evening's journey through the mists of history, where we'll step into a world long vanished, yet forever etched in our imaginations. Tonight, we read not just observers of the past, we read diving headfirst into a question that sparks the mind and stirs the soul. What if you woke up as royalty in medieval times? Picture it. One moment you're drifting off in your modern bed, phone glowing softly beside you. The next, you open your eyes to a world of stone castles, flickering torchlight, and the weight of a crown that feels heavier than gold. This isn't a fairy tale of gallant knights and endless feasts, it's a raw, unfiltered look at a life of unimaginable privilege shadowed by crushing responsibility. As we embark on this journey, I invite you to make yourself comfortable. Maybe you're lying in bed, the screen dimmed to a soft glow, or perhaps you're curled up with a warm drink, letting the past keep you company for a while. Wherever you are, take a moment to ground yourself in this moment. Where are you joining me from tonight? What time is it in your corner of the world? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about the places and moments that connect us across this vast digital tapestry. If you find solace in slow, thoughtful stories that peel back the layers of history, I'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. Together, we'll unravel the lives of those who shaped the medieval world, one story at a time. Let's set the stage. The medieval era, roughly spanning the 5th to the 15th centuries, was a time of stark contrasts. It was an age of soaring cathedrals and muddy villages, of chivalric ideals and brutal warfare, of divine kings and starving peasants. To wake up as royalty in this world is to step into a paradoxy life of opulence and power, yet one fraught with danger, isolation, and moral complexity. Imagine the sensation of waking in a grand four-poster bed, its oak frame carved with intricate patterns, draped in silks that shimmer in the morning light. The air is cool, scented with wax and wood smoke. But before you can savor this luxury, the weight of your new reality crashes down. You are no longer just a person. You are a symbol, a ruler whose every decision could mean life or death for thousands. The crown on your head, ice and tea, just a jewel-encrusted ornament, to a burden that will shape every moment of your existence. This series will take you through 12 facets of royal life, each revealing a different layer of what it meant to wield absolute power in a world so unlike our own. We'll explore the glittering palaces and the grim execution grounds, the lavish feasts and the adulterated bread, the divine mandates and the human frailties. By the end, you'll understand not just the allure of medieval royalty, but the profound cost of wearing the crown. So, let us begin with the first moments of your new life, the daily rhythms that set you apart from the common folk, yet bind you to a world of relentless expectation. Your eyes flutter open, and the world feels alien, as if you've slipped through time itself. The grand four-poster bed beneath you, its oak frame carved with swirling vines and heraldic beasts, creaks softly as you shift. The heavy oak door to your chamber, etched with your family's crest, swings open with a low groan, and your personal attendants glide in. Your attendants present garments that make your modern wardrobe seem laughably inadequate. For a noblewoman, the process begins with a linen chemise, soft against your skin, followed by a kirtle of fine wool or silk, its bodice laced tightly to shape your form. The table is set with silver platters and goblets, each engraved with your crest, gleaming under the flicker of torches. The spread is staggering. White bread, made from finely sifted wheat flour, soft and fresh. Unlike the coarse rye or barley loaves that peasants chew through gritted teeth, often mixed with sawdust or chaff to stretch meager supplies. After breaking your fast, you move to your private chapel for morning prayers, a necessity in a world where faith is both personal devotion and public performance. The chapel is small but ornate, its walls adorned with gilded icons and tapestries depicting saints and biblical scenes. Here, your closest advisor's chancellor, marshal, treasurer, bishop present, reports on the state of your realm. The chancellor speaks of legal disputes, the marshal of border skirmishes, the treasurer of dwindling coffers, the bishop of church demands. Their counsel is invaluable, but you sense their agendas, each pushing their own vision for your rule. You must balance their advice with your instincts, knowing that a misstep could spark rebellion or war. The weight of these discussions lingers as you move to the training yard, where if you're a nobleman, you might join your knights in practice, wielding sword or lance to maintain the martial skills expected of a leader. If you're a noblewoman, your time might be spent overseeing the household, directing servants, or embroidering with your ladies. Though even these tasks are political, reinforcing your role as the castle's heart. You kneel before a carved altar, the scent of incense heavy in the air, knowing that every eye in the room your attendance. Your confessors watching for signs of piety or weakness. The tables are laden with roasted boar, swans sculpted into artful shapes, and subtlety sugar sculptures that dazzle your guests. Minstrels play lutes, their songs praising your lineage, while jesters tumble to amuse your court. But even here you're on display, your seating arrangements signaling favor or disfavor, your laughter or frowns noted by all. The feast is a political chessboard, and you must navigate it with care, knowing that a rival noble or foreign envoy is watching for weakness. A king or queen who neglects prayer risks whispers of divine disfavor, which could unravel their legitimacy. The day's decisions, taxes raised, disputes settled, alliances weighed churn in your mind. The silk sheets and furs offer comfort, but the stone walls seem to close in, a reminder that your life, for all its splendor, is a performance with no intermission. Tomorrow, the cycle begins anew, each day a delicate balance of power, piety, and survival, in a world where your crown is both your glory and your burden. The priest leads you through Latin chants, their rhythm familiar yet distant, as most nobles, even the educated, rely on rote memorization rather than fluency. This moment of spiritual reflection is brief, for the castle is already stirring with activity, and your presence is required elsewhere. Honeyed cakes, glistening with sweetness, sit beside roasted venison, succulent pheasant, and delicate fish. Their sauces infused with exotic spices, cinnamon, cloves, saffron that cost more than gold. The hall is a cavernous space, its high ceilings supported by massive beams, its walls hung with tapestries that tell of your lineage's triumphs. Sunlight streams through stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the stone floor. Here you hold court, seated on a raised throne draped with furs and velvet. Vassals, merchants, and petitioners line up, their faces a mix of hope, fear, and ambition. A farmer pleads for relief from taxes after a failed harvest. A merchant seeks a royal charter to trade in your ports. A noblewoman begs for her son's release from your dungeons. Each case demands your judgment, and your decisions carry weight beyond the moment. Grant leniency, and you risk appearing weak. Force strict justice, and you may alienate allies. The hall buzzes with the low hum of voices, scribes scratching on parchment, knights clanking in their armor, servants scurrying with trays of wine. This is no quiet office. It's a stage where every gesture is watched, every word weighed. Fresh fruits like oranges, pomegranates, or figs are imported from distant lands, a luxury unimaginable to the common folk, who might never taste fruit beyond wild berries or windfall apples. Your goblet holds spiced wine, warmed with herbs and honey, or perhaps hippocras, a blend of wine and spices that warms your throat with its richness. This meal is not just sustenance, it's a display of power, a daily reminder that you command resources beyond the reach of ordinary men. Over this comes a surcoat, or gown of velvet or damask, dyed in hues that proclaim your wealth, crimson from crushed cochineal, azure from costly woad, or gold that rivals the sun. Most survive on pottage, a watery stew of grains, beans, or whatever scraps they can scavenge, flavored only with wild herbs or a pinch of precious salt. Meat is a rare treat, reserved for festivals or when an animal is too old to work, its flesh tough and stringy. Their bread is dark and heavy, often contaminated with mold or grit, and their drink is sour ale or water from streams that might carry disease. Your breakfast could feed a peasant family for a week, yet you barely notice the excess as you dine, your mind already turning to the day's demands. The servants who place these dishes before you move silently, their faces blank, but you know they too. Eat sparingly, perhaps the scraps from your table if they're lucky. The inequality is stark, and though you may not dwell on it, the weight of their silent labor underpins your every bite. Gold thread weaves through the fabric, catching the torchlight, while pearls, sapphires, or emeralds glitter at the neckline and cuffs. For a nobleman, A fitted doublet of silk or fine wool is paired with hose, followed by a surcoat or mantle edged with firman, sable, or minkand, adorned with intricate embroidery. These garments are heavy, not just with fabric, but with meaning. The dyes and materials are so costly that a single robe could feed a peasant family for years. Compare this to the rough, undyed wool tunics or hemp shifts worn by commoners, patched and faded from relentless use, often shared among siblings. Your clothing is a daily assertion of the feudal hierarchy, a visual proclamation that you are not one of them. If you're a noblewoman, ladies in waiting carry combs, mirrors, and basins of warmed water scented with lavender or rosemary. A lady in waiting or valet adjusts the folds of your robes, ensuring every detail is flawless. A jeweled brooch or belt, encrusted with gems, is secured, its weight a constant reminder of your status. A mirror rare and precious, made of polished silver or imported glasses held before you, reflecting a figure who looks more like a living icon than a person. Your hair is combed and styled, for a woman braided and tucked into a gold net or crowned with a circlet. For a man neatly trimmed and topped with a velvet cap studded with jewels. Every element of your appearance is scrutinized, for a single misstep a torn hem. A misplaced pin could spark whispers of carelessness, ripples that might erode your authority in a court where perception is power. You stand, transformed, your heavy robes settling like armor, preparing you for the day's battles of politics and prestige. If you're a nobleman, a valet stands ready with similar offerings, his movements precise and deferential. Their eyes are lowered, but you catch fleeting glimpses of curiosity or perhaps calculation in their glances. Washing is a ritual, a mark of your status. The water heated over an open fire carries a faint smoky tang, but it's a luxury compared to the cold streams or stagnant wells that peasants rely on, their bodies often caked with the grime of fields and labor. Your cleanliness, like everything else, sets you apart, a daily reminder of the chasm between your world and theirs. The silk curtains draped around it shimmer in the faint dawn light filtering through narrow, leaded windows, their glass panes, if your wealth allows such a luxury, casting muted colors across the cold stone floor. The air carries the scent of beeswax from candles burned low through the night, mingling with the faint smokiness of a hearth that never fully dies. These are no ordinary surroundings. You're in a private chamber, a sanctuary of wealth and power, stark contrast to the straw-stuffed pallets and cramped hovels where most of medieval society sleeps. Often alongside livestock for warmth, you are royalty, a king, queen, duke, or duchess, thrust into a life where every moment is both a privilege and a performance. Let's walk through a day in this gilded world, where opulence masks the relentless demands of your crown. As you stir, the distant clatter of pewter and silver echoes from the castle's kitchens below, where servants are already preparing your morning meal. Dressing is no mere act of clothing yourself, it's a ceremony, a deliberate display of power that requires multiple hands and meticulous care. The dressing ritual is time-consuming. Laces must be tightened, hooks fastened, and cloaks draped with precision. You move to a private dining chamber or the great hall, where your morning meal awaits, a spectacle that underscores the gulf between you and your subjects. Contrast this with the peasant's diet, a grim reflection of their place in the feudal order. Your meal is only the beginning of a day structured by rigid expectations. You proceed to the great hall, the heart of your domain, where the day's work begins in earnest. Your afternoon might include a council meeting in your solar, a smaller room warmed by a roaring fire. As evening falls, you return to the great hall for a feast, another display of power. As the night deepens, you retire to your chamber, but sleep is elusive. As the feast in the great hall winds down, the minstrel's lutes fade into a soft hum, and the flickering torchlight casts long shadows across the tapestries that proclaim your lineage. You rise from your throne, the weight of your velvet robes settling heavily on your shoulders, mirroring the burden of the day's duties that linger in your mind. The laughter and clinking goblets of the court fade as you retire to your solar, but there's no true respite. The life of a medieval royal is not one of idle luxury, it's a relentless cycle of responsibilities that demand your every waking moment. The crown you wear, gleaming with jewels, is a constant reminder that your decisions shape the lives of thousands, from the lowliest peasant to the most ambitious noble. Let's step into the heart of your role, where the challenges of power, political, social, and personal test your resolve and define your reign. Your day began with the rituals of dressing and dining, each a performance of your status, but now the true weight of kingship comes into focus. After morning prayers in your private chapel, where you knelt before a gilded altar under the watchful eyes of your confessor, in attendance, you moved to the great hall to hold court. The chapel's incense still clings to your robes, a reminder of the spiritual expectations that frame your rule. In this deeply devout world, your piety is not just personal, it's political. A king or queen who neglects prayer risks whispers of divine disfavor, which could unravel their legitimacy faster than any battlefield defeat. The Latin chants, though familiar, are often more rote than understood, for even among the educated nobility, literacy is rare, and fluency in Latin is rarer still. You rise from your knees, the cold stone floor a stark contrast to the warmth of your furs, knowing that the eyes of your court are already judging your devotion. The great hall awaits, its cavernous expanse, a stage for your authority. Sunlight streams through stained-glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the stone floor, while the air hums with the murmur of vassals, merchants, and petitioners. You ascend the raised dais, your throne draped in velvet and furs, its carved arms worn smooth by generations of rulers before you. The crowd parts, their bows low, their faces a mix of hope, fear, and ambition. A farmer, his hands calloused from the plow, steps forward, his voice trembling as he begs relief from taxes after a failed harvest. A merchant, clad in fine wool, seeks a royal charter to trade in your ports, his eyes gleaming with the promise of profit. A noblewoman, her gown almost rivaling yours, pleads for her son's release from your dungeons, where he's held for brawling with a rival's knights. Each case demands your judgment, and each decision is a tightrope walk. Grant leniency to the farmer, and you risk emboldening others to shirk their dues. Free the noblewoman's son, and you may alienate his rivals. Deny the merchant, and trade could falter, weakening your treasury. Your words carry the power of life and death, and the weight of that power presses against your chest like the heavy gold chain around your neck. The political landscape you navigate is a treacherous maze, where alliances shift like sand underfoot. Your court is a microcosm of your kingdom, buzzing with scribes, scratching charters, stewards managing your estates, and knights clanking in their armor as they prepare for drills or campaigns. But beneath the bustle lies a web of intrigue. Every smile hides a motive, every bow a calculation. Your marriage, arranged to secure a treaty or expand your lands, is a political contract, not a bond of affection. Your spouse, perhaps from a foreign court, brings their own customs and loyalties, and trust is a fragile thread. Your children, even as infants, are pawns in this game, betrothed to seal alliances or end feuds. A letter from a neighboring duke, delivered by a dusty courier, hints at a marriage proposal for your daughter, but is it a genuine offer or a ploy to weaken your defenses? You must weigh every word, every gesture, knowing that a misstep could spark war or rebellion. Warfare is a constant shadow. As a noble, you're expected to lead your armies, not from a safe distance, but in the thick of battle, clad in heavy plate armor that chafes your skin and restricts your breath. The clash of swords, the screams of the wounded, the stench of blood and mud, these are not distant reports, but visceral realities you must face. A single defeat could cost you your lands, your life, or your dynasty. Even in peace, the threat of assassination looms. Poison in your wine, a dagger in the dark, a trusted servant turned traitor paranoia is a rational response when power makes you a target. Medical care, crude and superstitious, offers little comfort. A fever could spiral into death, with leeches and herbal poultices as the only remedies. The Black Death, which swept through Europe just decades ago, lingers in collective memory, having claimed nobles and peasants alike. Its shadow fuels an obsession with salvation, as every cough or ache could be a divine warning. Your castle is both fortress and administrative hub, a hive of activity that never ceases. Stewards oversee your estates, ensuring taxes are collected and crops stored, but their reports are laced with complaints: bandits on the roads, floods ruining fields, tenants refusing to pay. Scribes draft letters to foreign courts, their quills scratching late into the night. While your marshal trains knights in the courtyard, their shouts echoing off the walls. Servants polish silver, mend tapestries, and stoke fires, their labor invisible yet essential. Managing this household is a logistical feat, and you must balance efficiency with fairness, knowing that a disgruntled servant could spread dissent, or worse, your education, if you're among the literate elite, equips you with the tools of statecraft Latin for diplomacy, theology for church relations, and martial skills for war, but it's a patchwork knowledge, often filtered through tutors with their own agendas. Many nobles rely on clerks for reading and writing, a vulnerability you must conceal to maintain authority. The social obligations of your role are as demanding as the political ones. You're expected to host feasts, hunts, and tournaments, each a costly spectacle to reinforce your power. A grand hunt in your forests, with hounds baying and falcons soaring, showcases your wealth but drains your coffers. A tournament, with knights jousting under your banner, strengthens alliances but risks injuries or feuds. Every event is a performance, your laughter and generosity scrutinized by guests who might be spies or rivals. Even your piety is public, donating to monasteries, funding cathedrals, or displaying relics like a splinter of the true cross are acts of devotion and diplomacy, binding you to the church while signaling your divine mandate. But the church is a double-edged sword. Defy its demands, and you risk excommunication, a spiritual death sentence that frees your subjects from their oaths. Comply too readily, and you may bankrupt your treasury or alienate your nobles. The dangers of your position are not just external. The psychological toll of constant vigilance erodes your peace. You lie awake at night, the silk sheets cold against your skin, replaying the day's decisions. Did you judge the farmer too harshly? Was the merchant's loyalty genuine? Could the noblewoman's tears mask a plot? The isolation of your role creeps in, as trust is a luxury you can't afford. Even your closest advisors, chancellor, marshal, bishop, have their own interests. Their counsel is tinged with ambition. Your spouse, bound to you by politics, may harbor their own plans. And your children, raised as pawns, grow distant under the weight of their own duties. The court is a labyrinth of whispers, where a careless word could spark a scandal or a coup. Privacy as you knew it in the modern world is a distant memory. Your chambers offer fleeting solitude, but guards stand watch, and servants linger nearby, their ears attuned to every sound. Your relationship with your subjects is complex, shaped by the feudal system's mutual obligations. Peasants owe you labor and taxes, but you owe them protection and justice, a balance that's never equal. Their lives marked by hunger, disease, and backbreaking work are largely invisible to you, yet their discontent could fuel rebellion. Chronicles speak of peasant uprisings, like the Jacquerie of 1358, where desperation turned into violence. You must navigate their needs while maintaining the hierarchy that elevates you. A generous act like forgiving a village's taxes could win loyalty, but weaken your treasury. A harsh decree could maintain order, but sow resentment. Every choice is a gamble, and the stakes are your kingdom's stability. As the day ends, you retire to your chamber, the fire casting shadows on the tapestries. The weight of your responsibilities lingers, a constant companion. You've judged disputes, weighed alliances, and faced the specter of war, all while projecting the strength and wisdom your crown demands. But beneath the royal facade, you're human, haunted by doubt, fear, and the knowledge that tomorrow will bring more of the same. The crown is not just a jewel-encrusted ornament. It's a chain that binds you to a life of duty, danger, and relentless scrutiny, where every decision shapes a kingdom and tests your soul. The fire in your chamber crackles, casting dancing shadows on the tapestries that line the stone walls. Their woven scenes of battles and saints, a silent reminder of the legacy you must uphold. You sink into a carved oak chair, the weight of your velvet robes mirroring the heavier burden of the day's decisions. The great halls clamor petitioners' pleas, advisors' murmurs. The clink of goblets has faded. But there's no peace in this solitude. The chancellor, his quill poised over parchment, urges you to settle disputes with written charters, strengthening your legal authority, but entangling you in bureaucracy. A bishop arrives with a demand for funds to build a cathedral, spires a testament to your piety. but a drain on your resources. Tutors drilled you in Latin for diplomacy, theology for church relations, and strategy for war, but no manuscript can capture the chaos of ruling. You've read chronicles of great King Charlemagne Alfred, William, whose triumphs seem almost mythical, yet their wisdom feels unattainable as you grapple with incomplete information and conflicting advice. You are God's anointed, your rule a divine mandate, and every choice carries eternal consequences. A harsh decree could save your kingdom but damn your soul. A merciful act could invite chaos but win divine favor. Church's teachings, salvation, the afterlife, permeate your thoughts, amplified by the ever-present threat of plague, famine, or war. The crown demands that you be more than human-wise, just unyielding. You are fallible, haunted by doubt and fear. Each decision is a solitary act, made in the quiet of your mind, yet its consequences echo through your kingdom. You envy the peasant who chooses only for himself, whose mistakes affect only his family, not a nation. The fire dims, and you rise, the day's burdens unresolved, knowing that tomorrow will bring more choices, more trade-offs, more lives hanging in the balance. The crown is your glory, but it is also your chain, binding you to a life where every decision tests the limits of your humanity. The Black Death, a recent memory, claimed a third of Europe's souls. Noble and peasant alike, in its shadow fuels an obsession with divine judgment. A wrong decision could bring God's wrath, or so the priests warn, their voices echoing in your chapel. You lie awake, the silk sheets cold against your skin, wondering if your choices align with heaven's will, or if you've strayed into sin. The fear of excommunication, a public declaration that your rule lacks divine sanction, is a constant dread, for it could legitimize rebellion or invasion. Literacy, a rare skill even among nobles, gives you an edge, but many of your peers rely on clerks, their illiteracy a hidden vulnerability. A decision to favor one noble over another could spark a feud, while neglecting their demands risks open defiance. A courier might arrive with news of a Viking raid, forcing you to abandon court for the war room. A sudden illness in your heir could upend succession plans, demanding urgent counsels. Every decision is made under pressure, with incomplete information and limited time. You rely on spies, scouts, and merchants for news, but their reports are often delayed or biased. A letter from a distant ally might take weeks to arrive, its wax seal cracked, its contents outdated. You must act on instinct, tempered by experience, knowing that hesitation could be as costly as haste. Your peasants bound to the land depend on your protection, but their labor funds your court. Raise taxes to rebuild a fortress, and you push them toward starvation. Forgive their dues, and you weaken your defenses. Chronicles recount uprisings like the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, where desperation turned into violence. You must balance their needs with your own, knowing that their suffering is the foundation of your power. This moral paradoxery sustained by their toil gnaws at you, a quiet guilt that surfaces in the stillness of the night. Your library, if you have one, holds precious manuscripts, religious texts, classical works, chivalric romances each, worth a fortune. Their vellum pages illuminated with gold. But theory crumbles against practice. A single wrong move attacks too high, a treaty too weak, could plunge your kingdom into chaos, and history will judge you mercilessly. The pressure to be infallible, to project wisdom and strength, is suffocating. Like the tight laces of your doublet or the heavy crown you wear during court, defying him risks excommunication, a spiritual and political catastrophe that could free your subjects from their oaths and invite foreign invasion. The farmer you taxed, his family now starving, is the soldier you sent to the border, never to return.
Ow.
The noble you snubbed, now plotting in the shadows. You replay every decision, second-guessing your instincts. Did you trust the wrong advisor? Did you misread the envoy's intentions? The isolation of your role deepens this burden. You can't confide in anyone fully, for even your closest allies have their own ambitions. Your spouse, bound to you by political necessity, may offer counsel, but their loyalty is never certain. Your children, raised as pawns in dynastic games, are too young or too distant to share your fears. The court is a labyrinth of whispers, where a moment of vulnerability could spark betrayal. Even your confessor, who hears your sins, holds power that could unravel your reign, his reports to the bishop a potential weapon. Yet complying too readily could weaken your defenses as fortresses crumble while masons carve saints in stone. Your spy master, a shadowed figure who speaks in whispers, reports rumors of a merchant conspiracy in your capital, urging swift action to seize their goods. Act too harshly, and you alienate the trade guilds that keep your economy alive. Hesitate, and rebellion could flare in the streets. The moral complexity of these trade-offs gnaws at you. Every choice causes suffering. Open the granaries, and your soldiers go hungry. Crush the merchants, and trade falters. Fund the church, and your people starve. The knowledge that your luxury silk robes, spiced wine, roaring fires comes at the expense of your subjects' hardships is a quiet torment, a reminder that your power is built on their sacrifice. The marshal, his voice gruffed from years on the battlefield, pushes for military action, warning that hesitation invites invasion. The treasurer, his brow furrowed, frets over dwindling gold, pleading for higher taxes to fund your court. The bishop, clad in robes as fine as yours, insists on donations to the church, reminding you that divine favor underpins your rule. Each speaks with conviction, but you sense their agendas, personal gain, family loyalties, or hidden rivalries. Their counsel is a double-edged sword, offering insight but tainted by self-interest. You must sift through their words, reading the subtext of every glance, every pause. Knowing that blind trust could lead to ruin, a misjudged advisor could steer you toward war, rebellion, or bankruptcy, and the blame will fall on you alone. As a medieval royal, your role is not just to rule but to decide, to wield a power that shapes lives with every word you speak. The crown glinting in the firelight is not merely a symbol of authority, it's a relentless demand for judgment, each choice a thread in the fragile tapestry of your kingdom. Let's step into the heart of this burden, where every decision carries the weight of lives, loyalty, and legacy, testing your mind and soul in ways no modern life could prepare you for. The day's duties linger in your thoughts as you sit, the parchment scrolls on your table heavy with reports that demand your attention. A poor harvest in the northern counties threatens famine due. You open your granaries, risking your army's supplies, or let the villages starve, knowing hunger could spark rebellion. A neighboring lord has sent raiders across your border, testing your strength. Do you fortify your defenses, draining your treasury, or seek diplomacy, risking perceptions of weakness? A powerful vassal has died, leaving a young heir and a strategic conciliar. Choice of regent could shift the balance of power, alienating one faction to appease another. These are not abstract problems, but immediate crises, each with consequences that ripple outward, affecting thousands you'll never meet. The farmer whose taxes you waived might survive another season, but your empty coffers could weaken your defenses. The raider you spare might return with an army. The regent you choose might betray you, turning your trust into a weapon. Every decision is a gamble, and the stakes are measured in lives, lands, and the survival of your dynasty. Your advisors gather in the solar, their faces illuminated by candlelight, each presenting a piece of the puzzle. The church looms over every choice, its influence a constant pressure. Your education, rigorous from childhood, was meant to prepare you for this. The psychological toll of decision-making is relentless. Each night, as you sit by the fire, the faces of those affected by your choices haunt you. The spiritual dimension of your decisions adds another layer of complexity. The feudal system complicates every choice. Your vassals owe you loyalty, but their allegiance is conditional, tied to land grants and privileges. Time itself is a challenge. Your days are structured, yet unpredictable. As you sit by the fire, the weight of these choices presses down like the stone walls around you. The fire in your chamber dwindles to glowing embers, its warmth barely reaching the cold stone walls that encase you. You sit alone, the carved oak chair creaking under the weight of your velvet robes, the golden chain of your office heavy around your neck. The day's decisions, taxes imposed, alliances weighed, disputes judge linger in your mind, or consequences, a restless shadow that denies you sleep. If you're a king, you were raised apart from other children, your playmates chosen for their lineage, not their friendship. Your tutors drilled you in Latin, theology, and swordplay, But they also taught you to distrust, to see every gesture as a potential threat. And you are the lead actor expected to project strength, wisdom, and benevolence. Your chambers, though luxurious, are never truly yours. Guards stand watch outside your door, their ears attuned to every sound. Servants linger, folding linens or tending the fire, their presence a reminder that solitude is fleeting. They see you as a divine figure, God's anointed, yet you know your fallibility. A wrong choice, a war unjust, a heretic spared could bring divine wrath, or so the church warns. Your confessors' probing questions, your bishop's stern lectures, remind you that your sins could damn not just you, but your kingdom. You cling to relics a splinter of the true cross, a saint's bone as talismans. But their power feels uncertain, their authenticity questionable. The fear of eternal judgment, amplified by the church's omnipresence, traps you in a spiritual prison where even your faith becomes a source of doubt. Their loyalty is bound by feudal oaths, but their love is conditional, tied to your ability to protect and provide. The crown has given you everything: wealth, power, reverence, but it has taken just as much. You are surrounded by people, yet alone, revered, yet mistrusted, powerful, yet powerless against the solitude that defines your reign. The fire's last glow illuminates the tapestries, their scenes of triumph mocking your isolation. Tomorrow, the cycle begins, in another day of masks, decisions, and the relentless loneliness of absolute power, where the greatest luxury is the freedom to be human, a freedom your crown will never allow. A famine, a lost battle, a harsh taxony could turn their devotion into rebellion. You hear their voices through petitions, their suffering filtered through scribes, but you rarely see their faces. Their world mud-caked villages, starving children, back-breaking laborers, a distant echo, yet their survival depends on your choices. This disconnect breeds a quiet guilt, a sense that your power is built on their sacrifice, yet you cannot bridge the gap without risking your authority. Even your thoughts are not safe. Your confessor, who hears your sins, holds power that could topple your reign, and a careless confession could reach the Pope's ears. You long for a moment of authenticity, to speak without fear of judgment, to laugh without calculation, but such moments are rare. The chronicles recount kings who sought solace in jesters or minstrels, only to find their trust betrayed by a wagging tongue. You learn to keep your own counsel, your heart a locked vault, its key lost to the demands of power. The great hall, with its soaring beams and vibrant tapestries, becomes a theater where seating arrangements signal favor, where your laughter or frowns are dissected for meaning. Will you be remembered as a Charlemagne, a lion-hearted hero whose name echoes through the ages, or a weak ruler whose missteps doomed your dynasty? You suspect your advisors of plotting, your spouse of disloyalty, your kin of ambition. The chronicles are filled with tales of betrayal, kings poisoned by their brothers, queens ousted by their sons. A servant's lingering glance, a noble's overly warm smile, every gesture is a potential threat. You rely on spies to watch your watchers, their reports a tangled web of half-truths and guesses. The fear of assassination, poison in your wine, a dagger in the dark keeps you vigilant, but vigilance is exhausting. You envy the peasant who sleeps soundly, his worries confined to his crops, not the fate of a kingdom. The crown isolates you not just from others, but from peace itself, turning every night into a battle with your own fears. This fear haunts every decision, from military campaigns to marriage negotiations. You study the chronicles of past kings, their victories and failures, hoping to glean wisdom, but their stories feel distant, their triumphs unattainable. The weight of history presses down, a constant reminder that your mistakes will outlive you. Carved into vellum for future generations to scorn. You lie awake, the silk sheets cold against your skin, imagining the scribes who will pen your story, their quills sharp with judgment. A casual remark to a foreign envoy could be read as a promise or a threat, sparking war or alliance. Your clothing, meticulously chosen each morning, is a costume crimson velvet to assert dominance, gold embroidery to dazzle allies. Even your piety is performative, your prayers in the chapel a spectacle for courtiers who gauge your devotion. You must hide your doubts, your fears, your human frailties, lest they be weaponized by rivals. The mask you wear grows heavier each day, eroding your sense of self until you wonder who you are beneath the crown. If you're a queen, your education focused on piety and courtly grace, but you learn just as quickly that your worth lies in alliances, not affection. Your own children, if you have them, grow up under the same constraints, their laughter stifled by the weight of their future roles. You watch them from a distance, their nurses and tutors shaping them into pawns for dynastic games, their spontaneity sacrificed to the demands of the crown. You long to comfort them, to share stories or games, but your time is consumed by statecraft. And their upbringing is a performance for the court, not a bond of love. Your spouse, perhaps from a foreign court, brings their own customs, their own spies, their own ambitions. You share a bed, a throne, a dynasty, but trust is a fragile thread, easily snapped by a whispered rumor or a poorly timed decision. Even if affection blooms, it's overshadowed by the calculations that bind you. Every child you produce is a potential heir. Every disagreement a potential fracture in your alliance. You dine together at feasts, your smiles practiced, your words measured, knowing that the court watches for signs of discord. The chronicles are filled with tales of royal marriages undone by betrayal, queens accused of adultery, kings poisoned by ambitious consorts. You wonder if your spouse sees you as a partner or a rival, and the uncertainty deepens your solitude. As a medieval royal, you stand at the pinnacle of power, surrounded by opulent silk tapestries, jeweled goblets, roaring hearths, yet utterly alone. The crown that elevates you above all others also cuts you off from the humanity you were meant to serve, trapping you in a gilded prison of suspicion, performance, and solitude. Let's delve into this silent weight, the loneliness that defines your reign, where every connection is tainted by politics and every moment demands a mask. The court you command is a bustling hive of activity servants scurrying, knights training, advisors plotting, yet it offers no true companionship. Every smile from a courtier hides a motive, every bow a calculation. Your chancellor, with his honeyed words, seeks favor for his family. Your marshal, loyal in battle, covets land or titles. Even your confessor, privy to your sins, reports to the bishop, whose loyalty lies with Rome. Their deference creates a barrier no wealth can breach. You long for a moment of unguarded conversation, a chance to share a doubt or a fear. But such vulnerability is a luxury you cannot afford. A careless word could be twisted into treason, a fleeting frown interpreted as weakness. You learn to guard your thoughts, to wear a mask of royal dignity, burying your true self beneath layers of protocol and pretense. The court is a labyrinth of whispers, where every interaction is a chess move. And you are the king or queen playing a solitary game against unseen opponents. This isolation begins early, woven into the fabric of your life from childhood. Your marriage, arranged to secure a treaty or expand your lands, is a partnership of politics, not passion. The performative nature of your life is exhausting. Every moment in public, every feast, every court session, every hunt is a stage. This constant performance extends to your private moments, for privacy is a myth in your world. The pressure to secure your legacy compounds this isolation. You know your actions will be chronicled, your reign judged by posterity. Paranoia becomes a constant companion, a shadow that grows with every whispered rumor. Your relationship with your subjects, though distant, deepens this solitude. The spiritual weight of your role isolates you further. As God's chosen, you bear the souls of your subjects, your decisions intertwined with their salvation. As the embers fade, you rise from your chair, the chamber's silence deafening. The embers in your chamber glow faintly, their light barely touching the cold stone walls, where tapestries of saints and martyrs seem to watch you with silent judgment. Stand alone, the weight of your isolation settling deeper as the night stretches on. The crown's relentless demands stealing any hope of rest. Beyond the political intrigues and crushing decisions, a heavier burden looms, one that binds your soul to the divine. Demands funds for a new cathedral, it spires a testament to God's glory and your piety. A woman from a nearby village stands accused of dark arts. Her neighbors claim she cursed their crops. Her children weep outside your gates. The priest presents her confession, extracted through torture, her words a jumble of fear and pain. Their religious education is a dynastic necessity, an heir who strays from orthodoxy could doom your line. You oversee their tutors, ensuring they study scripture alongside statecraft, but you worry about corrupting influences. A bishop urges you to root out heresy, but harsh measures could alienate your subjects who already strain under taxes and hunger. You strive to be just, merciful, wise, yet every decision involves compromise. Ordering a heretic's death may save souls but stains your conscience. Sparing them risks divine displeasure. You cling to prayer, to relics, to the hope of salvation, but doubt creeps in. Are the Church's demands truly God's, or are they human ambitions cloaked in sanctity? The Black Death, a recent terror, lingers in memory, its shadow fueling fears that any sin could bring God's wrath. See it in your subjects' eyes, fear of plague, of judgment, of a ruler whose soul might falter. Fund monasteries and pilgrimages, hoping to secure divine favor. But every coin spent on relics or masses is a coin not spent on fortresses or food. Your decisions, political and spiritual, intertwine, each carrying the weight of eternity. You envy the peasant, whose faith is simple, unburdened by the souls of a kingdom. The crown makes you God's representative, but it also makes you a prisoner, trapped between divine mandate and human fallibility. Tomorrow, you'll rise again, kneel in your chapel, and face the same questions, the same fears. Knowing that your faith public, scrutinized, and fragile is both your strength and your shackle, the Church hoards wealth granaries full, while villages starve yet preaches charity, a contradiction that grates on your conscience. You navigate this tension, balancing spiritual obligations with practical governance, knowing that a misstep could brand you a heretic or a weakling. The chronicles recount kings who fell to ecclesiastical wrath. Henry IV, kneeling in the snow at Canossa, begging forgiveness. You feared joining their ranks, your crown no shield against Rome's power. Heretical book, a wayward priest, could plant seeds of doubt that bloom into rebellion. You inspect their prayer books, their rosaries, their daily devotions, knowing the court watches for signs of weakness. Your daughter's piety, your son's reverence, these are not just personal virtues but political assets, scrutinized by bishops and nobles alike. You long to shield them from this pressure, to let them be children, but the crown demands they be symbols, their faith a mirror of your own. The Church teaches that burning a heretic saves their soul, purifying them through fire, but you hesitate. Refusal marks you as deficient, a ruler unworthy of God's favor, yet answering drains your treasury and leaves your kingdom vulnerable. You send knights to die in distant deserts, their armor gleaming under a foreign sun, unsure if their sacrifice serves God or papal ambition. The cost is staggering gold, men, resources, yet the promise of salvation for them and for you is a powerful lure. You pray for their success, clutching a relic, a fragment of the true cross, a saint's bone, hoping its power will protect them. But relics are a gamble, their authenticity often questionable. Losing one to raiders is a spiritual catastrophe, shaking your subjects' faith in your divine mandate. You spend fortunes on these talismans, their velvet-lined reliquaries, a constant reminder of the stakes. Was she truly a witch, or merely a healer whose knowledge frightened the ignorant? Ordering her death could appease the Church and quell superstition, but sparing her risks accusations of leniency, even heresy. The moral weight is crushing. Her life hangs on your word, and her soul, you're told, hangs on her execution. You see her face in your mind, her eyes wide with terror, and wonder if God truly demands such sacrifice, or if the Church's zeal has twisted his will. The decision keeps you awake, the rosary beads slipping through your fingers as you pray for guidance that feels elusive. The cost could rebuild a fortress or feed a starving village, but refusal risks excommunication, spiritual death sentence that would free your vassals from their oaths and invite foreign invasion. The memory of King John, excommunicated in 1209, lingers, a king humbled, his kingdom fractured until he bent to Rome's will. You nod, promising gold, but the choice gnaws at you. Your treasury is strained, your borders threatened, and your people hungry. Is this cathedral truly God's will, or a bishop's ambition cloaked in faith? The question haunts you, for every decision carries not just political but eternal consequences. As a medieval royal, you are not just a ruler, but God's anointed. Tasked with the spiritual welfare of your kingdom, your every choice echoing through eternity. The Church's presence is a constant shadow, its doctrines shaping your thoughts, your actions, and the very air you breathe. As God's chosen, your sins could bring divine wrath upon your people, plague, famine, or defeat, seen as punishment for your failings. A single unconfessed sinengar at a rival, envy of a neighbor's wealth, could undermine your divine right. Your confessor, a figure both trusted and feared, holds power that could topple dynasties. His questions probe your soul. Have you honored God in your judgments? Have you resisted temptation? You confess in whispers, the chapel's shadows closing in, knowing his reports reach the bishop, perhaps the pope. A moment of weakness could spark rumors of spiritual decay, eroding your authority. You lie awake, the silk sheets cold against your skin, questioning if your decisions align with heaven's will, or if you've strayed into sin. The fear of eternal judgment, amplified by the church's omnipresence, traps you in a spiritual prison where doubt is as dangerous as defiance. Let's step into this sacred yet suffocating role, where your divine responsibility and faith become both a shield and a chain, testing your resolve in ways that reach beyond the mortal world. Each morning begins in your private chapel, a small but opulent space where gilded icons gleam and stained glass windows cast jeweled light across the stone floor. You kneel before a carved altar, the scent of incense thick in the air, its curls rising like prayers toward heaven. The priest's Latin chants fill the space, their rhythm familiar yet distant. For even your education rigorous, as it was focused more on memorizing sacred texts than understanding their depths. Your attendants and confessors stand behind you, their eyes sharp, noting every gesture. In this deeply devout world, your piety is not private, it's a public performance, a cornerstone of your legitimacy. The medieval mind believes your right to rule comes from God himself, a divine mandate sealed by the anointing oil at your coronation. A king or queen who falters in faith risks being seen as forsaken by heaven, their authority crumbling faster than a castle under siege. You clasp your hands tightly, the cold metal of a rosary pressing into your palms, praying not just for salvation but for the strength to bear the spiritual weight of your crown. The church's influence permeates every decision. This morning a bishop arrives with a scroll, his face stern beneath his mitre. The Inquisition's reports arrive like grim tidings, their parchment heavy with accusations of heresy and witchcraft. Your own spiritual state is a matter of kingdom security. Your children, if you have them, carry the same burden. The Crusades loom as a wrenching dilemma. The Pope's call to reclaim the Holy Land is a spiritual obligation, a chance to prove your devotion on a global stage. The Church's demands clash with your secular duties, creating a moral tightrope. Your personal faith is a battlefield. Church's teachings, sin, redemption, the afterlife shape your worldview. But your human frailties clash with the divine ideal. The psychological toll is immense. Lie awake, the fire's embers cold, the tapestry's saints staring down. The embers in your chamber have faded to ash, leaving the room cloaked in darkness save for the faint moonlight filtering through the narrow windows. You lie awake, the weight of your divine responsibilities pressing against your chest. The saints on the tapestries seeming to judge your every thought. The spiritual burdens of your crown balancing God's will with human frailty are heavy. Minor crimes, petty theft, adultery, even blasphemy carry punishments that seem disproportionate by modern standards. Trial by ordeal is common. Accused men and women forced to carry red-hot iron, plunge their hands into boiling water, or face drowning in pure water, their survival or death seen as God's judgment. Nobles, with their wealth and influence, can bribe judges or buy pardons. Their crimes, murder, theft, treason often excused with a fine or a pilgrimage. A priest accused of theft might escape your gallows by claiming benefit of clergy, answering only to a church court that rarely imposes death. Each verdict you render, each life spared, or taken chips away at your humanity. A peasant knows that a single accusation, true or false, could mean death, with no advocate to plead their case. Nobles, though privileged, fear your wrath, for a charge of treason could strip them of titles and lands. The system breeds distrust, as neighbors turn on neighbors, accusing them of crimes to settle old grudges. You hear of villages torn apart by witchcraft trials, of families ruined by false testimony, and the weight of maintaining order feels like a millstone. Yet this flawed system is humanity's attempt at structure, a step beyond the lawless violence of earlier ages. Written laws, however harsh, mark progress. And your role as judge is a cornerstone of your authority, binding your kingdom together even as it tears at your conscience. You order a thief's execution, knowing his family will starve, and the weight of their hunger lingers in your thoughts. Fines and forfeitures are a lifeline for your treasury, but they tempt corruption. The thief you hanged, his children's cries. The heretic you spared, risking the church's wrath. The noble you find, now plotting in the shadows. The justice system, with its brutality and bias, is a mirror of your power absolute, yet flawed. A tool that maintains order, but erodes your humanity. You envy the peasant whose choices affect only his family, not a kingdom's fate. The crown demands you be judge, jury, and executioner, but each verdict leaves you more alone, trapped in a cycle of power and punishment that no prayer can absolve. A wealthy merchant might offer gold to escape punishment, and you must decide whether to accept, knowing the coin could fund your army or repair a crumbling bridge. Refuse, and you risk alienating a powerful guild. Accept and you undermine the law's integrity. The chronicles warn of kings who grew rich on such bargains, only to face rebellion when their justice was seen as bought. You strive for impartiality, but the pressure to balance morality with pragmatism is relentless. Each decision, a test of your principles. You witness a heretic's burning, the flames searing her screams into your memory, and wonder if you've served God or merely appeased a zealous crowd. The chronicles recount kings who hardened their hearts, like Edward I, whose brutal punishments quelled rebellion but earned him fear, not love. You strive to be just, but justice in this world is a blunt instrument, its edges stained with blood. The gallows, the pyre, the dungeon, they are your tools, but they leave scars on your soul, visible only in the quiet of your chamber. Sanctuary laws allow criminals to seek refuge in churches, their consecrated ground a shield against your justice. You've seen men murderers, traitors kneel at altars, daring you to violate sacred law to seize them. Defying the church risks excommunication, but letting them escape undermines your authority. The tension is palpable, a constant negotiation between secular power and divine will, with you caught in the middle. Peasants, with no such resources, face the full weight of the law, their pleas unheard, their fates sealed by your word. You see the inequality in the great hall, O Lord's Son? Cloprawling is fined a pittance, while a peasant thief faces the gallows for a stolen hen. The system's bias is stark, yet it's also a source of revenue. Fines and confiscated property flow into your treasury, tempting you to prioritize gold over justice. A merchant convicted of fraud might lose his lands, enriching your coffers, but fueling resentment among the trade guilds. You weigh the benefits against the risks, knowing that every verdict shapes your kingdom's fragile balance. You watch knights duel over disputes, the stronger fighter winning regardless of truth, their swords clashing under the belief that heaven favors the righteous. Torture, like the rack or thumbscrews, is a standard tool, extracting confessions that are legally binding but unreliable, as victims will say anything to end the pain. You receive reports of such confessions, written in a scribe's neat hand, but the words blur as you imagine the screams behind them. A woman accused of witchcraft, her body broken by the rack, confesses to impossible crimes, cursing crops, summoning storms. Do you believe her? Or is she a victim of fear and ignorance? The church insists on her execution, but doubt gnaws at you, a quiet voice questioning whether justice serves God or human cruelty. A thief might lose a hand, a blasphemer their tongue, an adulterer their life. Public executions are spectacles, drawing crowds like morbid festivals. Hanging is common, the ropes snapping necks in the town square, but graver crimes like treason demand horrors like drawing and quartering, dragged through the streets. Hanged until near death, disemboweled, beheaded, and dismembered, with remains displayed as warnings. You're expected to witness these punishments, the screams and stench of blood, a visceral part of your duties. The psychological toll is immense. Ordering a man's death, knowing his children watch, leaves a mark no feast or prayer can erase. See their faces in your dreams, their pleas mingling with the crackle of the fire, a constant reminder of the cost of your authority. But another duty looms, one that tests your resolve in a different way: the administration of justice. As a medieval royal, you are the ultimate arbiter of law, your throne the seat of judgment in a system as brutal as it is essential. The Great Hall, where you hold court, becomes a stage for life and death decisions. Each verdict a reflection of your power and a potential spark for rebellion or reverence. Let's step into this grim arena, where the medieval justice system, harsh, corrupt, and steeped in superstition, forces you to confront the darkest aspects of your rule, leaving scars on your soul that no crown can conceal. Each morning, after prayers in your chapel, you ascend the dais in the Great Hall, its stone walls echoing with the murmurs of petitioners and the clank of armored guards. The air is thick with the scent of wax and sweat, the stained glass windows casting fractured light across the crowd. Your throne, draped in velvet and furs, elevates you above the throng, but it also isolates you. A solitary figure tasked with wielding justice in a world where mercy is rare and punishment is spectacle. A peasant stands before you, his hands trembling, accused of stealing a loaf of bread to feed his starving family. His wife and children kneel at the hall's edge, their sobs a quiet counterpoint to the scribe's monotone reading of the charge. Under medieval law, theft can mean death by hanging, the gallows a grim fixture outside your castle walls. You could spare him, citing mercy, but leniency might embolden others to defy the law, weakening your authority. Condemn him, and you uphold order, but his family's cries will haunt you. The weight of this choice presses down. A reminder that justice in your world is not about fairness, but about power and perception. The medieval justice system is a brutal machine, its mechanisms rooted in fear and control. Superstition underpins much of the system, making justice a gamble with divine will. Corruption taints the system at every level. The church's parallel courts complicate your authority. Ecclesiastical courts, overseen by bishops, claim jurisdiction over clergy and moral crimes like heresy or adultery. The moral and psychological toll of this system is crushing. Your subjects live in fear of this system, their lives hanging on your whims. The economic incentives of justice add another layer of complexity. As you lie in your chamber, the moonlight casting long shadows, the day's judgments replay in your mind. The moonlight spills through your chamber's narrow windows, casting a pale glow on the stone walls, where tapestries of saints and battles seem to flicker with judgment. You lie awake, the echoes of the day's justice, hanging thieves, sparing heretics. Navigating the church's demands, churning in your mind, each verdict a wound on your conscience. The weight of your crown, heavy with gold and responsibility, keeps sleep at bay. But another reality presses in, one as vital as law: the sustenance of your kingdom. In medieval Scotland, food is not just nourishment, but a measure of power, stark divider between your opulent table and the meager hearths of your subjects. From your castle's battlements, you oversee a land where hunger is a constant companion for many, where the bread you break is a luxury, and where every bite carries risks of adulteration or disease. Let's step into this world of feast and famine, where the struggle for sustenance in medieval Scotland shapes lives, fuels tensions, and tests your rule. From your chamber, you can almost hear the distant clamor of the burg's marketplace, where merchants hawk their wares under a sky heavy with the scent of unwashed bodies, animal dung, and hearthfire smoke. The market is a lifeline, but it's also a battleground of survival where desperation breeds deceit. Bakers like Hamish of Edinburgh, his hands dusted with flour, knead dough under pressure to feed a growing town. Grain shortages, worsened by poor harvests or raids, force him to stretch his flour with ground acorns, sawdust, or chalk, turning wholesome bread into a gritty, bitter loaf that churns the stomach. Wives like Morag of Inverry, brewing in cramped cellars, watered down their ale to make barrels last, transforming a nourishing staple into thin swill that leaves drinkers weak. These acts are not always malice, but necessity, Hamish, and Morag face starvation themselves if they don tea sell enough. Yet their adulteration erodes trust, as customers bite into chalky bread or sip weak ale, whispering of fraud but buying still, for there's little choice in a land where scarcity is king. Your royal table, by contrast, groans under the weight of abundance. In the great hall, silver platters hold white bread, soft and fresh, made from finely sifted wheat, a luxury beyond the reach of most. Roasted venison, succulent pheasant, and delicate fish swim in sauces laced with saffron, cinnamon, and cloves, spices worth more than gold, imported from distant lands through perilous trade routes. Fresh fruits, oranges, pomegranates, figs arrive by ship, their sweetness a privilege reserved for the elite. Your goblet brims with spiced wine, warmed with honey and herbs, its richness a stark contrast to the sour ale or polluted water that peasants drink. This morning's feast could feed a village for days, yet you barely notice the excess, your mind occupied by the day's duties. The servants who place these dishes before you move silently, their own meals a meager echo of your scraps from your table, if they're lucky, or pottage thickened with whatever they can scavenge. The contrast between your table and your subjects is a mirror of the feudal hierarchy. Peasants survive on pottage, a watery stew of barley beans or wilted greens, flavored only with wild herbs or a pinch of salt, if they can afford it. Meat is a rare dream, tasted only at festivals or when a sick animal is slaughtered, its flesh tough and stringy. Their bread, dark and heavy, is often mixed with chaff or moldy grain, a gritty staple that wears down teeth and sours stomachs. Water drawn from streams or wells carries disease typhoid, dysentery making every sip a gamble. In lean years like the Great Famine of 1315 to 1322, desperation drives some to eat bark, grass, or worse, whispered tales of cannibalism haunting the chronicles. Your castle's granaries, stocked with preserved meats and imported delicacies, shield you from such horrors, but the knowledge of your subjects' hunger lingers, a quiet guilt as you break your bread. The assize of bread and ale, a royal decree, sets standards for quality and price. But enforcement is a patchwork of corruption and neglect. Inspectors, often bribed by desperate bakers, turn a blind eye to sawdust and loaves, or water and ale. Punishments for adulteration are harsh bakers, like Hamish Face, the pillory. Their faulty bread hung around their necks as crowds jeer or banishment, leaving their families destitute. Wives like Morag might be flogged or ducked in a pond, their humiliation a public warning. Yet economic pressures persist, grain prices soar, harvests fail, and survival demands compromise. You, as ruler, oversee these laws, but enforcing them risks alienating the burgs that fuel your economy. A lenient inspector keeps the market alive. A strict one could spark unrest. The choice is yours, and each decision ripples through the marketplace, shaping trust and tension. The spice trade, a lifeline for your feasts, is equally fraught. Merchants like David Stewart, trading in pepper, saffron, and cloves, face ruin if a shipment spoils or a caravan is raided. To recoup losses, they mix precious spices with cheaper substitutes, ground nutshells for pepper, marigold for saffron deceiving, even your royal kitchens. The cost of these spices, carried across deserts and seas, makes them a status symbol. Their presence on your table, a display of power. Yet even you are not immune to contamination. Spoiled meat, hidden under heavy sauces, or moldy grain in your bread can sicken you. As it did King John in 1216, felled by tainted peaches, the chronicles warn of nobles poisoned by bad food, a reminder that wealth offers no shield against nature's indifference. Preservation methods, salting, smoking, drying are crude and risky. Heavily salted meats, stored in barrels, turn tough and briny, their salt sometimes contaminated with impurities that cause illness. Smoking adds flavor, but also carcinogenic compounds, unknown to your physicians, who rely on the four humors to explain disease. Fermentation, used for ale and cheese, can produce toxins if mishandled, turning sustenance into poison. Your castle's cellars hold stores of preserved food, but even these are vulnerable to mold or rats, a constant battle against decay. For peasants, the risks are greater. Moldy bread or rancid meat is often their only option. Each bite a gamble with health. The lack of hygiene open sewers, unwashed hands compounds these dangers, making food a source of fear as much as nourishment. The church's fasting rules, like Lent's ban on meat and dairy, deepen the divide. You dine on imported fish or almonds, costly substitutes that maintain your strength, while peasants, unable to afford such luxuries, face starvation during fasting seasons. Women, tasked with feeding families, bear the brunt of these restrictions. Their culinary knowledge, sometimes mistaken for witchcraft, An herbal remedy or preserved fruit could spark accusations, leading to trials you must judge. The church itself, preaching charity, hoards granaries while villages go hungry, a contradiction that grates on your conscience. Your decrees, taxes, trade policies, war directly impact food availability. Heavy tax could mean a peasant family skips meals. A war could disrupt trade, emptying markets. The moral weight of these choices, knowing your feasts rely on their labor, adds to the burden of your crown. Environmental challenges exacerbate the struggle. Scotland's harsh climate, wet springs, cold winters makes farming a gamble. Poor soil, overworked by generations, yields meager crops, and deforestation limits fuel for baking or brewing. Crop failures, like those of the 1310s, push entire regions toward famine, while your castle's stores remain full. You hear reports of villagers foraging for roots or boiling leather for sustenance, their desperation a distant echo in your stone halls. Medical misconceptions, like balancing the humors through diet, worsen health. Physicians prescribe fasting for ailments, weakening already frail bodies. Your own health, tied to the kingdom's stability, depends on these same flawed methods, a reminder that even your power cannot conquer nature. As you lie in your chamber, the moonlight fading, the reality of food and sustenance weighs heavily. Your table overflows, yet your subjects starve. Your spices dazzle, yet they hide deceit. The marketplace, with its adulterated bread and watered ale, is a microcosm of your kingdom's struggles, where survival battles trust. You envy the peasant who, though hungry, faces no moral dilemma in his daily bread. Your decisions, taxes, laws, wars, shape their plates, and the guilt of their hunger lingers, a silent companion to your crown's burdens. Tomorrow you'll feast again, but the taste of opulence will be bittersweet, flavored by the knowledge of a kingdom divided by sustenance. The moonlight in your chamber has faded, leaving only the faint glow of a single candle, its flame flickering against the stone walls, where tapestries of saints and warriors seem to whisper of your kingdom's burdens. You lie awake, the weight of your rule heavy with the knowledge of your subjects' hunger, their bread gritty with sawdust, their ale thin from desperation. The marketplace's struggles, adulterated loaves, watered brews, spoiled spices, reflect a deeper truth. Food in medieval Scotland is not just sustenance, but a mirror of power, a stark divider between your opulent table and the meager hearths of those you rule. From your castle's battlements you survey a land where the feast you enjoy is a distant dream for most, where every bite reinforces the rigid hierarchy that elevates you above all others. Let's step into this world of food inequality, where the social order shapes every meal. The divide between royal and peasant plates tests your conscience as much as your crown. Your morning begins in the great hall, where silver platters gleam under torchlight, laden with a feast that proclaims your status. White bread, soft and fresh, is crafted from finely sifted wheat, its purity a luxury reserved for the elite. Roasted peacock, its feathers artfully replaced for display, sits beside venison and delicate fish, their sauces rich with saffron, cinnamon, and clove spices, worth more than gold, carried across perilous seas. Fresh fruits, oranges, pomegranates, figs arrive from distant lands, their sweetness a privilege few can imagine. Your goblet holds spiced wine, warmed with honey and herbs, its aroma a stark contrast to the sour ale or polluted water of the common folk. Sugar sculptures molded into castles or heraldic beasts dazzle your guests, their cost enough to feed a village for months. This is no mere meal, it's a spectacle, a daily assertion of your wealth and power. Each dish a reminder that you command resources beyond the reach of ordinary men. Beyond your castle walls, the peasant's diet tells a different story, one of scarcity and survival. In mud-caked villages, families gather around hearths to share pottage, a watery stew of barley, beans, or wilted greens, flavored only with wild herbs, like nettle, or a pinch of precious salt. Meat is a rare dream, tasted only at festivals like Michaelmas, or when a sick animal is slaughtered, its flesh tough and stringy after years of labor. Their bread, dark and heavy, is made from rye or barley, often mixed with chaff, sawdust, or moldy grain to stretch meager supplies, its grit wearing down teeth and souring stomachs. Water drawn from streams or wells carries disease, typhoid, dysentery, making every sip a risk. In lean years, like the Great Famine of 1315 to 1322? Desperation drives some to eat bark, grass, or worse, with whispered tales of cannibalism haunting the chronicles. Your castle's granaries, stocked with preserved meats and imported delicacies, shield you from such horrors. But the knowledge of your subjects' hunger lingers, a quiet guilt as you break your bread. This dietary divide is no accident. It's enshrined in law and custom. Sumptuary laws, enforced across your realm, dictate who can eat what, reinforcing the social hierarchy. Only the nobility may enjoy white bread or exotic spices, while peasants are confined to coarse loaves and simple fare. These laws, rooted in the Church's teachings on humility, also serve to maintain order, ensuring the poor cannot aspire to the trappings of their betters. A peasant caught eating white bread could face fines or public humiliation, their transgression a challenge to the feudal order. Your feasts, with their roasted swans and sugar sculptures, are not just displays of wealth, but political tools, dazzling vassals and envoys, while reminding them of your dominance. Yet the excess weighs on you each bite of venison, each sip of spiced wine, is a privilege built on the labor of those who starve. The Church's influence deepens this divide, its fasting rules a burden that falls heaviest on the poor. During Lent or Advent, meat and dairy are forbidden, pushing peasants towards starvation as they lack the means for costly substitutes like fish or almonds, which you import with ease. A peasant family might survive on pottage thinned with water, their bodies weakening while you dine on salted herring or candied fruits. The Church preaches charity, yet its monasteries hoard granaries, their stores full while villages go hungry, a contradiction that grates on your conscience. Women, tasked with feeding families, face unique perils. An herbal remedy, or preserved fruit, crafted to stretch meager supplies, could spark accusations of witchcraft, especially if a neighbor's child falls ill. You've judged such cases in your great hall, the accused trembling before you, their fate hinging on your word. The Church's zeal, fueled by fear of heresy, turns women's culinary knowledge into a danger, their hearths a potential pyre. Seasonal scarcity amplifies these inequalities. Your castle's cellars, stocked with salted meats, smoked fish, and imported spices, ensure you eat well year-round. Peasants bound to the agricultural cycle face a different reality. Spring brings foraging for wild greens, their bitterness a poor substitute for grain. Autumn's harvest, if bountiful, offers brief relief, but winter forces rationing. With families surviving on dwindling stores of barley or dried peas, a failed crop, common in Scotland's harsh climate, could mean starvation, while your table remains laden. The chronicles recount winters where villages emptied, or inhabitants fleeing or dying, their desperation a distant echo in your stone halls. Your decisions, taxes, trade policies, wars directly shape this reality. A heavy tax could force a family to sell their last grain. A war could disrupt trade, emptying markets. The moral weight of these choices, knowing your feasts rely on their sacrifice, adds to the burden of your crown. Preservation methods, crude and unreliable, deepen the divide. Your kitchens use salting, smoking, and drying to store food, but these are imperfect arts. Heavily salted meats turn tough and briny, their salt sometimes contaminated with impurities that sicken. Smoking adds flavor but risks carcinogenic compounds, unknown to your physicians who rely on the four humors to explain illness. Fermentation, used for ale and cheese, can produce toxins if mishandled, turning sustenance into poison. Your wealth allows for better preservation, clean barrels, skilled cooks, but even you are not immune. Spoiled meat, hidden under heavy sauces, or moldy grain in your bread can sicken, as it did King John in 1216, felled by tainted peaches. For peasants, the risks are greater. Moldy bread or rancid meat is often their only option, each bite a gamble with health. The lack of hygiene, open sewers, unwashed hands compounds these dangers, making food a source of fear as much as nourishment. Environmental challenges exacerbate the struggle. Scotland's wet springs and cold winters make farming a gamble, with poor soil yielding meager crops. Deforestation, driven by the need for fuel and farmland, limits wood for baking or brewing, forcing peasants to burn damp peat that taints their bread with ash. Crop failures like those of the 1310s push entire regions toward famine, while your castle's stores remain full. You hear reports of villagers foraging for roots or boiling leather, their desperation a stark contrast to your feasts. Medical misconceptions worsen the toll. Physicians prescribe fasting or purging for ailments, weakening already frail bodies. Your own health, tied to the kingdom's stability, depends on these same flawed methods, a reminder that even your power cannot conquer nature's indifference. The social hierarchy, reinforced by food, shapes every interaction. Your feasts are political theater, with seating arrangements signaling favor or disfavor. A vassal placed near you enjoys your bounty, while one relegated to a lower table feels the sting of exclusion. Foreign envoys, dazzled by your spices, carry tales of your wealth, strengthening your diplomatic hand. Yet, these displays come at a cost. Each banquet drains your treasury, and the excess could feed starving villages. The chronicles warn of kings who bankrupted their realms with lavish feasts, their generosity mistaken for weakness. You balance splendor with restraint, knowing that every dish is a statement, every guest a potential ally or foe. As you lie in your chamber, the candle's flame dwindling, the divide between your table and your subjects weighs heavily. Your feasts are a symbol of power, yet they rest on the hunger of those you rule. The church's fasting rules, the laws that bind the poor to coarse bread, the environmental hardships that empty their plates, all are threads in the tapestry of your reign, each pulling at your conscience. You envy the peasant who, though hungry, faces no moral dilemma in his daily bread. Your decisions in taxes, wars, justice shape their survival, and the guilt of their suffering lingers, a silent companion to your crown's burdens. Tomorrow, you'll feast again, but the taste of opulence will be bittersweet. Flavored by the knowledge of a kingdom divided by food and power, the candle in your chamber burns low, its flickering flame casting long shadows across the stone walls, where tapestries of feasts and triumphs seem to mock the weight of your thoughts. You lie awake. The divide between your overflowing table and the hunger of your subjects, a bitter taste that lingers, a reminder of the chasm that separates you from those you rule. But there's a deeper, more insidious burden, one that cuts sharper than the guilt of inequality, the profound psychological and social isolation of your position. As a medieval royal, you are surrounded by opulent silk sheets, jeweled goblets, roaring hearths, yet utterly alone, a figure elevated above all others, but severed from the human connections that give life meaning. The crown that adorns your head is a gilded cage, trapping you in a world where every smile hides ambition. Every word is a potential betrayal, and your every moment is a performance. Let's step into this silent prison where the isolation of absolute power erodes your sense of self, leaving you yearning for a freedom no throne can grant. The great hall, where you preside over feasts and judgments, is a bustling stage. It's filled with the clatter of silver, the murmur of courtiers, and the songs of minstrels. Yet, despite the crowd, you are alone. Every face vassal servant advisor watches you with a mix of reverence and calculation, their bows low but their eyes sharp. Your chancellor offers honeyed words, but you sense his desire for a richer estate. Your marshal, loyal in battle, covets your favor for his kin. Even your confessor, privy to your soul's secrets, reports to the bishop his loyalty divided. Their deference creates a barrier no wealth can breach, a wall of formality that isolates you from genuine connection. You long to speak freely, to share a doubt or a jest without fear of judgment, but such vulnerability is a luxury you cannot afford. A careless word could be twisted into treason. A fleeting frown interpreted as weakness, sparking whispers that ripple through the court like wildfire. You learn to guard your thoughts, to wear a mask of royal dignity, burying your true self beneath layers of protocol and power. This isolation is not new. It was woven into your life from childhood. As a prince or princess, you were raised apart from ordinary children, your playmates chosen for their lineage, not their friendship. Your tutors drilled you in Latin, theology, and swordplay, but they also taught you to distrust, to see every gesture as a potential threat. The chronicles describe young royals with eyes shadowed by a weariness no child should know, their laughter stifled by the weight of their future roles. Your own children, if you have them, suffer the same fate. You watch them from a distance, their nurses and tutors shaping them into pawns for dynastic games, betrothed at 5, trained in courtly etiquette by 10. You long to comfort them, to share stories or games, but your time is consumed by statecraft, and their upbringing is a public spectacle, not a private bond. Their eyes, like yours, grow guarded, their childhood sacrificed to the demands of the crown. The pain of this distance cuts deep, a quiet ache that no feast can soothe. Your marriage, arranged to secure a treaty or expand your lands, is a partnership of politics, not love. Your spouse, perhaps from a foreign court with strange customs, brings their own ambitions, their own spies. You share a bed, a throne, a dynasty, but trust is a fragile thread, easily snapped by a whispered rumor or a poorly timed decision. Even if affection blooms, it's overshadowed by the calculations that bind you. Every child you produce is a potential heir, every disagreement a potential fracture in your alliance. At feasts, you sit side by side, your smiles practiced, your words measured, knowing the court watches for signs of discord. The chronicles are filled with tales of royal marriages undone by betrayal, queens accused of adultery, kings poisoned by ambitious consorts. You wonder if your spouse sees you as a partner or a rival, and the uncertainty deepens your solitude. A constant reminder that even those closest to you are bound by the crown's chains. The performative nature of your life is a relentless burden. Every moment in public, every feast, every court session, every hunt is a stage, and you are the lead actor, expected to project strength, wisdom, and benevolence. The Great Hall, with its soaring beams and vibrant tapestries, becomes a theater where seating arrangements signal favor, where your laughter or frowns are dissected for meaning. A casual remark to a foreign envoy could be read as a promise or a threat, sparking war or alliance. Your clothing, chosen each morning with meticulous care, is a costume crimson velvet to assert dominance, gold embroidery to dazzle allies. Even your piety is performative, your prayers in the chapel a spectacle for courtiers who gauge your devotion. You must hide your doubts, your fears, your human frailties, lest they be weaponized by rivals. The mask you wear grows heavier each day, eroding your sense of self until you wonder who you are beneath the crown's weight. Privacy, as you knew it in the modern world, is a distant memory. Your chambers, though luxurious with silk sheets and carved oak, are never truly yours. Guards stand watch outside your door, their ears attuned to every sound. Servants linger, folding linens or tending the fire, their presence a reminder that solitude is fleeting. Even your thoughts are not safe. Your confessor, who hears your sins, holds power that could unravel your reign, his reports to the bishop a potential weapon. You long for a moment of authenticity, to speak without fear of judgment, to laugh without calculation, but such moments are rare. The chronicles recount kings who sought solace in jesters or minstrels, only to find their trust betrayed by a wagging tongue. You learn to keep your own counsel, your heart a locked vault, its key lost to the demands of power. Paranoia becomes a constant companion, a shadow that grows with every whispered rumor. You suspect your advisors of plotting, your spouse of disloyalty, your kin of ambition. The chronicles are filled with tales of betrayal, kings poisoned by their brothers, queens ousted by their sons. A servant's lingering glance, a noble's overly warm smile, every gesture is a potential threat. You rely on spies to watch your watchers, their reports a tangled web of half-truths and guesses. The fear of assassination, poison in your wine, a dagger in the dark, keeps you vigilant, but vigilance is exhausting. You envy the peasant who sleeps soundly, his worries confined to his crops, not the fate of a kingdom. The crown isolates you not just from others, but from peace itself, turning every night into a battle with your own fears. The pressure to secure your legacy compounds this isolation. You know your actions will be chronicled, your reign judged by posterity. Will you be remembered as a Charlemagne, a lion-hearted hero whose name echoes through the ages, or a weak ruler whose missteps doomed your dynasty? This fear haunts every decision, from military campaigns to marriage negotiations. You study the chronicles of past kings, their victories and failures, hoping to glean wisdom. But their stories feel distant, their triumphs unattainable. The weight of history presses down, a constant reminder that your mistakes will outlive you. Carved into vellum for future generations to scorn, you lie awake, the silk sheets cold against your skin, imagining the scribes who will pen your story, their quills sharp with judgment. Your relationship with your subjects, though distant, deepens this solitude. They see you as a divine figure, God's anointed, yet you know your fallibility. Their loyalty is bound by feudal oaths, but their love is conditional, tied to your ability to protect and provide. A famine, a lost battle, a harsh taxini could turn their devotion into rebellion. You hear their voices through petitions, their suffering filtered through scribes, but you rarely see their faces. Their world mud-caked villages, starving children, backbreaking labor is a distant echo, yet their survival depends on your choices. This disconnect breeds a quiet guilt, a sense that your power is built on their sacrifice, yet you cannot bridge the gap without risking your authority. The spiritual dimension of your isolation is profound. As God's chosen, you bear the souls of your subjects, your decisions intertwined with their salvation. A wrong choice, a war unjust, a heretic spared, could bring divine wrath, or so the Church warns. Your confessors' probing questions, your bishop's stern lectures, remind you that your sins could damn, not just you, but your kingdom. They cling to relics, a splinter of the true cross, a saint's bone as talismans, but their power feels uncertain, their authenticity questionable. The fear of eternal judgment, amplified by the Church's omnipresence, traps you in a spiritual prison, where even your faith becomes a source of doubt. As the candle gutters out, the chamber's darkness closes in, the tapestry's figures fading into shadow. The crown has given you everything: wealth, power, reverence, but it has taken just as much. You are surrounded by people, yet alone, revered, yet mistrusted, powerful, yet powerless against the solitude that defines your reign. Tomorrow, you'll rise again, don your mask, and face the court. But the yearning for connection, for a moment of humanity untainted by power, will linger, a silent ache no throne can heal. The candle in your chamber has guttered out, leaving you in darkness, the cold stone walls pressing in as the tapestries of saints and warriors fade into shadow. The silence is heavy, broken only by the distant howl of wind beyond the castle's battlements, a reminder of the world you rule but cannot escape. Your thoughts churn with the isolation of your positioned courtiers who bow but scheme. A spouse bound by politics, children raised as pawns, each a thread in the tapestry of your solitude. Yet this loneliness is only part of the burden. As a medieval royal, you wield absolute power, a divine mandate that elevates you above all others, but binds you to a life of relentless responsibility. The crown is not just a symbol of authority, it's a chain, forged from the expectations of God, your subjects, and history itself. Let's step into this crushing weight, where every choice shapes a kingdom, every moment tests your humanity. The power you hold threatens to consume you. Your day begins with the familiar rituals, prayers in the chapel, where incense curls toward heaven, and the donning of velvet robes that proclaim your status. But these are mere preludes to the true demands of your role. In the great hall, you ascend the throne, its carved oak and firs, a throne of judgment, not comfort. The crowd, vassals, merchants, peasants parts before you, their eyes a mix of fear and expectation. A border lord reports raids from a rival clan, demanding troops to secure his lands. A merchant pleads for lower tariffs to save his trade. A village elder begs for relief from taxes after a flood ruined their crops. Each petition is a thread in the web of your authority, and you alone must decide. Send troops, and you risk war. Lower tariffs, and your treasury suffers. Grant relief, and you may embolden others to shirk their dues. Every choice is a gamble, its consequences rippling through your kingdom. And the weight of these decisions presses against your chest like the heavy gold chain around your neck. Absolute power means absolute accountability, not to your subjects, but to God and history. The Church teaches that you are His anointed, your rule, a divine mandate sealed by the oil at your coronation. A single misstep, a war unjust, a tax to harsh could bring divine wrath, manifesting as plague, famine, or defeat. The Black Death, a recent scourge, lingers in memory, its shadow fueling fears that your sins could damn your people. Your confessors probing questions: have you honored God? Have you resisted temptation? Or not just spiritual, but political? For a ruler deemed unrighteous risks excommunication, a spiritual and temporal death sentence. The chronicles recount kings like Henry IV, humbled at Canossa, their power stripped by Rome's decree. You pray fervently, clutching a rosary or a relic, a splinter of the true cross. Its authenticity uncertain, hoping to align your rule with heaven's will. But doubt gnaws at you, a silent question. Are your choices God's or merely yours? The political landscape is a treacherous maze, and your power, though absolute, is precarious. Your vassals swear fealty, but their loyalty is conditional, tied to land grants and privileges. A decision to favor one noble over another could spark a feud, while neglecting their demands risks rebellion. The chronicles warn of uprisings, like the Barons' War of 1264, where disgruntled lords turned against their king. You must balance their ambitions, rewarding loyalty without weakening your authority. A single misjudgment, promoting a disloyal lord, ignoring a powerful clan, could ignite a civil war. Your castle's walls no shield against betrayal. Your spies, cloaked in shadow, bring reports of whispered plots, but their words are riddled with half-truths, leaving you to navigate a fog of suspicion. The fear of assassination poison in your wine, a dagger in the dark, keeps you vigilant, your sleep haunted by the specter of treachery. War is a constant shadow, and your power demands you lead, not from a safe distance, but in the chaos of battle. Clad in heavy plate armor, you ride at the head of your army, the clash of swords and screams of the wounded, a visceral reality. A defeat could cost your crown, your life, or your dynasty, as it did for Harold II at Hastings in 1066. Even in victory, the cost is staggering: gold drained, men lost, lands ravaged. Your decisions when to fight, whom to ally with, determine the survival of your realm, and the weight of each choice lingers like the ache of armor on your shoulders. Peace is no respite, for diplomacy is its own battlefield. A marriage alliance, like your own, secures borders, but binds you to a foreign court's ambitions. A treaty with a rival king might avert war, but invite accusations of weakness. Every parchment you seal, every envoy you receive, carries the potential for prosperity or ruin. The moral dilemmas of your power are relentless. In the Great Hall, you judge disputes that test your conscience: a thief's life for a stolen loaf, a heretic's death to appease the church. Mercy could win hearts, but weaken order. Severity upholds the law, but stains your soul. See the faces of those you condemn: peasants, nobles, even children, their eyes pleading as your word seals their fate. The chronicles speak of kings who hardened their hearts, like Edward I, whose brutal campaigns earned him fear but not love. You strive for justice, but the medieval system is blunt. Its punishments: hanging, burning, mutilation, more about control than fairness. Each verdict chips away at your humanity, leaving you to wonder if you're a ruler or a tyrant, a question that echoes in the silence of your chamber. Your power extends to the very lives of your subjects, yet it isolates you from them. Their world mud-caked villages, starving families, backbreaking labor is a distant echo, filtered through scribes and stewards. You hear their pleas through petitions, but their faces are shadows, their suffering abstract. A tax to fund your wars could mean a family's starvation. Campaign to secure your borders could leave villages burned. The chronicles recount peasant revolts like the one in 1381, where hunger and injustice fueled violence. You must balance their needs with your own, knowing their survival depends on your choices, yet you cannot bridge the gap without risking your authority. This disconnect breeds a quiet guilt, a sense that your feasts, your furs, your very life are built on their sacrifice. The psychological toll is crushing. You lie awake, the darkness of your chamber, a mirror of your thoughts, replaying each decision. Did you tax too harshly? Trust the wrong advisor? Condemn an innocent? The weight of absolute power is not just in its responsibilities, but in its solitude. Do you bear the consequences alone? Your advisors, with their own agendas, offer counsel but no comfort. Your spouse, bound by politics, cannot share your fears. Your children, raised as heirs, are distant figures, their loyalty uncertain. The court is a labyrinth of whispers, where a moment of vulnerability could spark betrayal. Even your faith, meant to guide you, becomes a burden, every choice scrutinized by God, every sin a potential calamity for your kingdom. Your legacy haunts you, a constant pressure to be more than human. The chronicles will judge you: will you be a David, a warrior king of legend, or a John reviled for weakness? You study the manuscripts of past rulers, their triumphs and failures, hoping to avoid their mistakes. But their stories feel distant, their wisdom unattainable. The weight of history presses down, a reminder that your errors will outlive you, etched in vellum for scribes to scorn. You envy the peasant whose choices affect only his family, whose mistakes fade with the harvest. Your power, though absolute, is a chain binding you to a life of vigilance, sacrifice, and unrelenting scrutiny. As the wind howls outside, the darkness of your chamber feels like a tomb. The tapestry's figures silent witnesses to your struggle. The crown has given you everything: wealth, authority, reverence, but it has taken just as much. You are the master of your kingdom, yet a prisoner of its demands. Your power, a paradox that elevates and destroys. Tomorrow, you'll rise again, don your robes, and face the court. But the weight of absolute power will remain, a constant companion that no prayer, no feast, no victory can lighten. The throne is your glory, but it is also your burden, a chain forged from the lives you hold and the humanity you surrender. The darkness of your chamber envelops you, the howl of the wind outside, a faint echo of the kingdom you rule, its weight pressing against your soul. The crown, a cold weight in your thoughts, has bound you to a life of absolute power, decisions that shape lives, judgments that stain your conscience, and an isolation that cuts deeper than any blade. The tapestries, their woven saints and warriors faded in the shadows, seem to whisper of a legacy that will outlive you, carved in vellum for scribes to judge. Yet as you sit in this medieval world, a flicker of your modern self stirs, pulling you back to the present, July 4th, 2025, where the hum of technology and the pulse of a connected world replace stone walls and torchlight. This journey through the life of a medieval royal, its feasts, its justice, its solitude averse. More than a glimpse into the past, it holds a mirror to our own time, revealing timeless truths about leadership, power, and the human cost of authority. Let's step out of the castle and into the modern world, reflecting on what this thought experiment teaches us about ourselves, our leaders, and the fragile balance of power in today's society. The medieval royal's life, with its opulent feasts and brutal judgments, feels worlds apart from our own, yet the core challenges of leadership remain strikingly familiar. You wielded absolute power, your every word shaping a kingdom, but each decision carried the weight of lives: peasants starving under heavy taxes, knights dying in your wars, heretics burning at your command. Today, leaders, whether presidents, CEOs, or influencers, face similar pressures, albeit in different forms. A politician's policy can lift millions or plunge them into hardship. A corporate decision can create jobs or shutter factories. A single tweet can spark movements or ruin reputations. The stakes have shifted, but the burden of choice remains. Consider a modern CEO, their office a glass tower instead of a stone castle, yet their decisions, layoffs, mergers, environmental policies, echo your medieval dilemmas. A tax cut might boost the economy, but widen inequality, much like your choice to open granaries or fund a cathedral. The weight of power, then as now, demands a balance between immediate needs and long-term consequences, a tightrope walk where every step risks a fall. The isolation of your medieval role, surrounded by courtiers yet alone, trusted by none, finds echoes in today's leaders. The higher one climbs, the lonelier the perch. A president, guarded by security details, lives under constant scrutiny, their every word dissected by media and opponents, much like your court's whispers. A tech mogul, despite their wealth, faces distrust from employees or the public, their motives questioned as yours were by vassals. Even influencers, seemingly connected to millions, confess to loneliness, their curated lives a modern mask akin to your royal persona. The medieval court, with its calculated smiles and hidden daggers, mirrors today's boardrooms and social media platforms. Alliances shift and betrayal lurks. You learn to guard your thoughts, to wear a mask of strength, and today's leaders do the same, their authenticity sacrificed to public perception. This shared isolation reminds us that power, in any era, comes at a human cost, severing the connections that ground us. The medieval justice system, with its brutal punishments and superstitious trials, seems barbaric, yet it reflects a truth about human nature. The need for order often clashes with fairness, your verdicts hanging a thief, Burning a heretic were tools to maintain control, but they left scars on your soul. Today, justice systems, though more structured, still grapple with bias and inequality. A judge's sentence, a lawmaker's policy, or a police officer's action can disproportionately harm the marginalized. Much like your peasants faced harsher punishments than nobles, the chronicles of your time warned of corrupt officials taking bribes. In modern headlines echo this: corporations buying influence, politicians swayed by donations. The moral dilemmas you faced, mercy versus order, justice versus expedience, persist in debates over prison reform, capital punishment, or systemic inequity. Your struggle to balance righteousness with pragmatism teaches us that justice, then and now, is a human construct, flawed and fraught with trade-offs. Food inequality, a stark divider in your medieval world, remains a pressing issue today. Your table groaned with white bread, spiced wine, and exotic fruits. While peasants survived on gritty pottage and moldy bread, in 2025, the divide persists. Some dine on organic, farm-to table meals, while others rely on processed food or food banks. The FAO reports that over 700 million people globally face hunger despite record agricultural output. Your castle's granaries stocked, while villages starved. Mirror modern supply chains where surplus food rots while millions go without. The church's fasting rules burdening the poor. Find parallels in economic policies that favor the wealthy. Tax breaks for corporations while social programs falter. Your guilt over feasting while subjects hungered echoes the unease of modern leaders who champion progress yet oversee growing inequality. This reflection urges us to question who controls access to resources and how our choices personal, corporate, political perpetuate or alleviate these divides. The spiritual weight of your role as God's anointed shaped every decision, your sins a potential calamity for your kingdom. Today, faith may not hold the same overt power, but moral and ethical dilemmas remain central to leadership. A CEO's decision to ignore environmental regulations for profit mirrors your choice to fund a cathedral over feeding your people. Both prioritize image over impact. The church's influence, with its relics and excommunication threats, finds a modern parallel in public opinion, where a leader's misstep can lead to cancellation or backlash. Your fear of divine judgment, amplified by the Black Death's shadow, resonates with today's anxieties: climate change, pandemics, social unrest, where leaders are judged not just by results, but by their moral compass. The relics you clutched, hoping for divine favor, are akin to modern leaders' reliance on data, PR, or charisma, all fragile shields against the unpredictability of human judgment. The psychological toll of your power paranoia, doubt, the erosion of self, offers a sobering lesson for today. You lay awake, haunted by choices, fearing betrayal, your humanity buried under the crown's demands. Modern leaders face similar strains. Burnout rates among executives are high, with studies showing 60% report mental health struggles. The constant scrutiny, the need to project invincibility, mirrors your masked existence. Social media amplifies this, turning every decision into a public spectacle, much like your court's whispers. Your envy of the peasant, a simpler life, finds echoes in modern desires for authenticity, people craving genuine connection in a world of curated facades. Now, this teaches us that power, while seductive, demands sacrifice, and those who wield it need support mentors, confidants, mental health resources to remain whole. What can we take away from this journey? First, leadership is a burden, not a privilege. Whether in a medieval castle or a modern boardroom, the weight of decisions, economic, moral, personal, shapes lives and demands resilience. Second, power isolates, but connection heals. Your inability to trust, to be vulnerable, left you alone. Today, fostering authentic relationships can counter this, whether through open communication or community building. Third, inequality, be it food, justice, or opportunity, breeds tension. Your feasts contrasted with peasant hunger, just as modern wealth gaps fuel unrest. Addressing this requires empathy and action, from policy reform to personal responsibility. Finally, the past is a mirror, not a blueprint. Your struggles with faith, justice, and power highlight universal human challenges. But we have tools, technology, democracy, education to forge better paths. As you sit in your imagined chamber, the medieval world fades, and you return to 2025, where your phone glows on the nightstand, the hum of the modern world a stark contrast to stone walls, yet the lessons linger.
Out.
Leadership demands sacrifice, but it need not destroy. Power isolates, but we can choose connection. Inequality persists, but we can strive for fairness. The crown you wore was a chain, but in our world, we have the chance to lighten that burden for ourselves, our leaders, and those we serve. So as you step back into your life, ask yourself, what choices will you make to balance power with humanity? How will you bridge the divides that separate us? The past is spoken, the future is yours to shape.